think the picture I put in there is from Hillcrest.
This one is
This one is.
right in your section, but this section in front, Bill thinks that's from Monroe, which was.
Are you collecting those? Every time I come,
What is he talking about there? Just the whole sort concept itself?
This is just examples, and actually, this is my part of it.
Oh, okay.
But it's good that you put current,
We can probably find some pictures.
and I will ask Jason to post some pictures of the public.
So just to
improvements.
let you guys, neighborhoods know, we are filming this Saturday session today.
So
It will
behave.
be, yeah, just so you know, it will be on our website after the session for anybody who needs to go back and maybe review what was discussed. So
So be on the website?
Did you hear
Yes.
that? We're recording this so that we can put the video out on the website if people want to review what was said, or, you know, as you're filling out applications. So mind your manners, behave.
So you're from the hearing aids, so I don't want to do it.
Okay.
I think the batteries are still good. I don't know. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Just be on the city website.
Yes.
yes, and we'll show you.
You could send the link out after
I did.
to the,
Yeah, and also.
oh, the application page. That page, yeah, where the application is at.
I'm going to show them that during my section too.
Cool. Wait, just 1 minute.
We have 2 more people. Do you want to give them maybe until 5 after?
Well, let's wait till Jason gets
Okay.
back in here for sure.
Well, for sure.
Maybe give them a couple more minutes so that,
Okay.
but we'll, maybe when Jason gets back down there. So we're gonna be on. They don't work again. Batteries, I put them in, but I haven't used it, but I didn't ever shut it off. They're dead again. My ears are ringing real loud.
Well, we have microphones. Oh, it's loud.
We got 1, 2, 3.
I think we'll go. Oh, here comes somebody. Hello. Those mics are really sensitive. Which page are you on? One. Probably.
Bill, you watch the curling.
That's in High Crest. Corey fixed
I
those
heard her,
salaries.
so
Well, her group did.
she brought home.
Are you looking at the demolition one? Is that what you,
Miracle.
or the one on top?
Oh,
The one that
This
where, yeah, where is that? North Topeka?
I forget where that one was. Renee did it.
I was like, that one does.
Yeah.
Do I have to sit here? Okay, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll start by thanking you guys for coming out on Saturday morning and joining us, taking time away from your weekend. I'm Sasha Hahn. I work with the Department of Neighborhood Relations, and we'll do quick introductions here for you.
Corey Wright, Division Director, Housing Services.
Jason Peak, I'm the Public Works Director for City of Topeka.
Bill Finder, I'm Planning Director for the City of Topeka.
Okay, so you guys are all here to find out about SORT and the application process for this year. So we will kick it off with the, oh, I've got it. Okay, so we're gonna just do a brief overview of what SORT is. SORT is a neighborhood improvement program where we partner with your neighborhood, and we are interested in increasing the quality of life in the neighborhood through public infrastructure and housing improvement. So that's what our programs are targeted to. In the first part of the program, you'll be working with the planning department to develop a comprehensive neighborhood plan or to update your plan if there's already one that exists. And then the program also comes with up to $1.4 million in public infrastructure financing for things like streets, sidewalks, curbs and gutters, public improvements, and then we also offer $330,000 in housing rehabilitation funds for folks that income qualify. That is an income qualified program, and Corey will talk more about that here in just a little bit. So there are 3 stages, as I mentioned earlier. The first stage is a year's worth of work with the planning department where you'll be updating or creating a new plan for your neighborhood. Once the plan is finalized, it gets taken to the Planning Commission for recommendation to the City Council, and it has to be formally approved by the City Council by way of an ordinance. That incorporates the document into our comprehensive development plan, and that's what triggers the improvements. So once all of that takes place, hopefully in year 1, then it moves on to the design phase, and in year 2, Jason's group and engineering takes care of designing all of the public improvements. During year 2, we also kick off the housing phase where we go through an application process and some workshops with folks in the neighborhood for the housing rehabilitation. After the design of the public improvements is done in that year 2, then implementation or the build out of the public improvements would start in year 3. Best case, we like those improvements to be done in a year, but in some cases that implementation and construction phase does stretch out a little bit further than just 1 year. So these are some past neighborhoods that have received the SORT program and have had improvements done in their neighborhoods. And there's some pictures here that I'll show you here real briefly, but there are a couple of things that I want to point out to the group that will be different going forward with the SORT program. One of the things that we've been working on with the Public Works and the planning group is to try to tighten up the process so that we weren't finding ourselves in year 6 and still working on public improvement projects. So we spent a year working through our process with planning and public works, and what we came to realize during those conversations was that not only could we tighten up our process, but we we could probably achieve some efficiency and align sort with the capital improvement program, which does the big street improvement projects and big sidewalk projects. If we, rather than selecting 2 neighborhoods every other year, if we went to 1 selection every year. And Jason is going to, if I try to explain to you how that syncs up sort with the capital improvement program, I'll just screw it all up and confuse everyone. So that's why Jason is here, is to talk to you about how we believe we can link those up together and get things aligned. But starting this year, we will go to an application process every year, and we'll select 1 neighborhood every year. So the net result is the same, but you'll be able to apply on an annual basis. The other change that you'll see in the application is we've received a directive from the City Council to limit the amount of city dollars that are spent in the park system. So there is a cap on the amount of funding that will be provided for park improvements, like play equipment and things like that. The cap is set at 5% of the total $1.4 million that's available for infrastructure improvements. And there's also a 50% match requirement. So in order to include park improvements in your plan, which is where that piece will be important, you'll need to be able to find a partner to help fund those park improvements. Shawnee County Parks and Rec Department would be a natural place to go for that partnership, but we're not limiting to that, the matching requirement to the Parks Department. So if you can find another partner in the community that would be willing to help fund park improvements, we're fine with that. But you will have to secure that commitment as part of the application process when you submit your application. So I'm going to stop there or do we want to do questions at the end, or should we? Okay. LaToya's telling me yes, we'll do questions at the end. So write your questions down so you don't forget them, and we will cover all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So here are some pictures of the types of public improvements that have been done in the past. Here's some alley improvements. As many of you know, we have old alleys in the community that have been greatly improved with some concrete paving. So that's what those pictures are showing you. Here's some sidewalks, some really old sidewalks that were cracked and broken up, and the neighborhood was able to replace that sidewalk section as part of the SORT program. There's a really nice street improvement. And that's a before picture of a housing rehab case that we took care of, and this is the after. So some pretty nice improvements in the neighborhoods. So just really quickly to go back over the program requirements. We are looking to address the most critical needs in the community based on selection of 1 neighborhood annually. And again, I don't want to screw up the explanation of how it syncs up with CIP, but I'm pretty excited about that because if you pay attention to city government, you know that the capital improvement plan is where the big road projects happen, and many of you in the older neighborhoods have serious concerns about your streets. So we think that we'll be able to align the programs and pull some of those big projects into your neighborhoods as we're doing SORT. I think that's going to be a great improvement to the program. It's important to keep in mind that priority scoring is given to neighborhoods with existing plans that are older than 5 years. So if your plan is, if you have a plan and it's older than 5 years, you're going to get additional points for that. Funding priority for infrastructure projects and housing projects is given 2 projects that are identified in the target area. And some of you that have been through SORT know what that means, but as part of the planning process, because $1.4 million won't fix everything in your entire neighborhood, planning works with the neighborhood to identify a target area that's 3 to 6 blocks in area, and that's where we concentrate the resources. And the goal is that you would have enough meaningful improvements that you could drive through that area and say, wow, this really is different and improved. So that's what we're aiming to do in your neighborhood. Again, not more than 5% of the overall infrastructure budget, which is that $1.4 million, will be allowed to be spent in public park and park amenities, and we do require a 50% match from another source. And it's not restricted to the Parks Department, but we would encourage you to try, many sources. If we don't receive any applications, which we hope that never happens, but if that were the case, then Neighborhood Relations would get with the Planning Department and identify 3 neighborhoods. The health map would probably have a lot to do with that identification process. And we would take 3 neighborhoods to the Citizens Advisory Council for as a selection of 1. And I'll follow up on that. Many of you know that have been in this for a while that the Citizens Advisory Council is the group that selects the applications that go to the council for recommendation for approval. So who gets picked? I'll point out to you, though, as well, that the applications are scored now. In the past, they haven't been scored, but we've created a scoring system to try to make it a more fair and objective process. So your score will play into that selection. All right. Done with me? We're moving on to the really cool part with the Public Works.
All right, thank you, Sasha. So I got 2 objectives I just want to try and help everybody with. One is explain our CIP, or our capital improvement process. We're currently going through what we call the 2019 CIP process. That's going to be coming before council in April to approve that. And so I kind of want to walk you through and help you understand how it relates to the SORT applications. And then, as Sasha mentioned, talk about kind of the process we've been going through to align SORT with the larger CIP. So our capital improvement plan, this is one of the largest portions of the city budget, and a couple things that I think is important for all of you to know about what a capital improvement plan is. But it is basically a 10-year plan of how we want to allocate city resources to basically maintain our assets, our infrastructure, and it gets broken up into a bunch of different categories: streets, utilities, public safety. Overall, there's about 25 different asset types that we focus on within the CIP. And this is a document that's approved by City Council on an annual basis. So it's a 10-year forecast, and every year we're kind of bringing in that next period of time into it. And more importantly, what this document does is within that 10-year period, the first 3 years is what we call our capital improvement budget. And so when council approves that, they basically authorize 3 years of spending that the departments start taking on. Within this process, like I said, there's 25 different assets. There's 11 different funding sources within the CIP. When you think about money coming from utilities, the citywide half-cent sales tax, the countywide half-cent sales tax, this SORT program comes out of general obligation bonds as well as federal funds. And so we have, over 11 different funding sources that we're programming over this 10-year period. And I think, when I got here and looked at our process, what I saw is we're doing a lot of things individually. And so if you think about this graphic and how everything's over here and it's just kind of scattered, we have master plans, whether it be infill sidewalk or pavement management program, water line replacements, storm sewer, drainage issues, all these different plans that individually we're working on and have been programming over that 10-year period. And so I think the conversation between planning, neighborhood relations, and public works was we could have more impact if we can kind of bring these projects into alignment. And just to kind of throw out some examples that you guys have had experience with, I think about historic Old Town. We redid Clay Street as part of the pavement management program. Central Park, we're working on a number of street and stormwater improvements in there. Infill sidewalks are going into different neighborhoods. We have grant projects that are going on in North Topeka for safe routes to schools. And if we could have those projects basically aligned with our CIP, then that's basically augmenting the funding that can come into our neighborhoods and have a larger impact. And so we've, as Sasha said, been working over the past year of how do we bring the SORT process in line with the CIP so that once we're getting into implementation, the things that Public Works does, maybe we have additional projects that we can bring online to have a greater impact in the neighborhood. And so I want to kind of walk you through the CIP process. So what I have before you here is kind of looking at if we took this year, 2018, and you're going to be applying for SORT grants in 2018, how that helps us is in fall of 2018, we start what's called CIP coordination. So council will approve a CIP in the spring, and then in the fall of 2018, we're already starting to work on that next year's CIP. And so what's important for us is at that time to know what neighborhood has been selected. Because when we're planning this forecast to CIP, we're really talking about the projects that are going to roll into 2022. Because you think of that evolving process, every year we're doing this, that first 3 years is kind of fixed. So right now we're working on the 2018 CIP that was approved last year, and that specified projects for 18, 19, and 20. And so it's an evolving process. 2019, we coordinate, we know what neighborhood selected. We go to council in 2019, we get the CIP adopted. And then a lot of our projects, as Sasha said, depending on the scope and scale, can take up to 3 years to deliver. There's the first part where we do design work. When we talk about alleys or street improvements, it's identifying the right-of-way limits, getting survey done, identifying underground utilities. We want to make sure if we're replacing significant amount of infrastructure on top that the underground infrastructure is in good shape. A lot of times that requires us to coordinate not only with city utility partners, but Kansas Gas, Westar, AT&T, the other utility providers. And so in that second year, we're working on right-of-way and utility coordination if they need to move facilities or replace facilities in advance of the street work. And in that third year, we're doing construction. And so in terms of, like I said, of that CIP, in 2019, that basically will approve a CIP from 2020 to 2029. And it will authorize funding for that period of 2020 to 2022. And then we have these projects in 23 and 24 that aren't funded, but are starting to kind of get in the hopper and move forward. And so if we take that into the SORT process, across the top, I have that same kind of timeline of the years for the CIP. And then on the bottom, it's just kind of laying out the way that the SORT process works. So in 2018, neighborhoods are making the application and they're identified. We don't know what you're doing in the neighborhood at that time, but we kind of know the geographic location that's going on. And that allows us to kind of look at, say, the infill sidewalk project or a bikeways master plan or a pavement management or utility infrastructure and say, as we get into 2019 CIP, we need to be looking at projects that will be hitting in that neighborhood in 2021 and 2022. At the same time, what's going on, you guys have been selected. Planning department's going to start working with you on your neighborhood plan and defining the specifics of what you want to see would have the most impact in your neighborhood within the SORT program. And then 2020, we're turned over and actually starting the design work of those projects. But at the same time, we've already been starting design work on all those other things in the CIP that we anticipate implementing in 2021 and 2022. And so that's why we think going to this annual selection process, we do the CIP annually So having the neighborhoods submit their applications annually and knowing which one's in there allows us to better plan and align the resources we have. And so that is basically a snapshot of how the CIP works and how it aligns with the SORT application process. And as LaToya said, we'll be happy to answer any questions towards the end of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Bill.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning, everybody. I am shackled to my chair here. I would like to get up, but I think I have to stay here so I can speak into the microphone.
You do.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is going to be a
They told
challenge.
me no, too.
Jason that was a great lead into kind of where we want to go. I'm going to step back just to his slide real quick. Everybody see where we are in 2018. Okay, that's where we're going to be applying for SORT this year. But in 2019, that light green box, that's where planning department comes into play. And so I'll take you through basically an example of 2019 and what your neighborhood plan, what is neighborhood planning and what do you get out of it and what are we doing with it and how can you help? So the process, some of you have been through this, so this may be old news, but for those of you who haven't, with the switch in going from 2 neighborhoods to 1 neighborhood a year, this is going to be such a much more efficient process for the neighborhood we're working with. It usually takes us 6 months to work through a plan and get it to Planning Commission and the governing body for adoption. It's really hard for us to be working on 2 plans at once, and I think you would understand our focus needs to be with the neighborhood we're working on. There's a lot of effort that goes into that, and so what tends to happen is that second neighborhood that we've been doing in the past it gets bumped into the next year. Their projects end up being really late into the pipeline, and Jason and Sasha's implementation of housing and infrastructure work gets way behind. And so this is a much more focused process for the neighborhood that's selected. And I put up some timelines just so you understand. So if you get selected in 2018 to be that neighborhood that we worked with in 2019, we would anticipate having a kickoff meeting in February of 19 there at the bottom. Leading up to that, though, my staff is doing a lot of work in collecting data so that when we have that kickoff meeting, we will be presenting a bunch of existing conditions of your neighborhood and the trends so that you can start making some decisions. Not any final decision, but certainly kind of your goals and objectives and your vision shaped by that data. We will form a committee with the neighborhood. This is it could differ from neighborhood to neighborhood. We kind of like to have you define what that committee, who's on that committee. We need stakeholders, people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and meet with us every month at least. I think some of these met more. Sometimes they branch off into very specific subcommittees even. Some neighborhoods have park subcommittee or a street subcommittee or housing. It just depends. And we kind of like to leave that open to you and be flexible how that works. So as you can see, if you start down here in February with the kickoff meeting, I put in there all. All. We notify everybody in the neighborhood. That's an all meeting. Everybody gets called, come one, come all. When we get to the committee, that's a few. That's a few of you that begin working. It's a working group that begins working on the issues and going through the recommendations. When we get through all of that, and we have a final plan draft, then we come back and do another all meeting. And that's in August. At least that's the new schedule. And then by September, and then you basically sign off and bless the plan as a neighborhood, and then we move on to the Planning Commission and the governing body in October for approval, which is, if you listen to Jason's commentary, is perfect timing to then hand over a series of infrastructure projects for Jason, and also if there's utilities involved, for utilities, because that's when they start putting together the CIP that he was talking about. That's when they start identifying those projects. If we don't have the projects identified by and approved by October, we're going to miss a window. And that window, which is getting your projects into the CIP and having them being coordinated with other projects that he's doing. So, very important to kind of keep on that schedule from here. We were kind of, as I think Sasha kind of hit on, a little more, we're tightening the ship up a little bit, I think, because we see the benefit that comes from when we're more disciplined in using this process. We can hit windows and we can get projects delivered on time, and I think that's what everybody was hoping for in this, and maybe even more collaboration with other projects. So that's your projects. I kind of put in, this is Tennessee Town's plan, but so you get to the end of a plan, and that gets adopted. That's a very simplified chart. Elements of the neighborhood plan, though, are, this is, I could call it a kitchen sink plan, but it's really intended to be comprehensive and catch a lot of things, not just where you want to spend your short money. So we have a neighborhood profile. We do the history of the neighborhood. We have existing conditions, housing, infrastructure, home ownership. You'll see in a second sort of those things. Trends. So we present that to you in a way that you can understand, block by block basis. You help develop a vision and goals. Where are you going? Where do you want to be? And how do we get there? So the how do we get there comes in. We have a future land use plan here, which is the basis for all of our planning is where do you want development to go? What is the use of the land that will be best for your neighborhood, most compatible with your largely residential neighborhood? Where does your business interests want to be? There are conflicts. So that sets policy for your future land use plan, and that's a great time to address some situations that you may have had in the past, things happen that you didn't want to necessarily have happen that way. Revitalization strategy. So this is kind of the meat of the plan. This is where you get into target areas, and I'll go through that in a second. That's where we are targeting, Sasha said, 3 to 5 to 6 blocks. It's amazing how we've just kind of said that over the years, but it really is 3 to 5 blocks that we target, and with the whole purpose of impact and making a visible difference as opposed to spreading all the investment around the neighborhood. We really want to turn a few blocks around and have that be a ripple effect. So we do that. Neighborhood-wide strategy. So there's a targeted 3 to 5 blocks, and then there's a neighborhood-wide, meaning, hey, we're still looking. We still want you to look at the whole neighborhood. There's going to be strategies in there that we may not be able to fund with the SORT funding in the next year or two, but that doesn't mean we stop there. So we identify other things you can do: housing, character, image, beautification, circulation, and infrastructure. We have pedestrian master plans. We have bikeways master plans. We have funding for that as well. That could actually, if you could identify priorities for those improvements, we can include that in your overall plan. Parks and open space. You all love your parks if you have one in your neighborhood. Most neighborhoods do. We want to work with you on that as well. It used to be just the city, but now obviously we're bringing a partner in with the county, and as Sasha said, we've made some changes to those policies. I will say that we have had several neighborhoods we've worked with in the past that had actually some pretty big neighborhood type projects, expanding their park, or some I know, for instance, in Central Park, we did the track and the fencing, and it was a pretty big deal, but it was based on the target area and in the middle of the neighborhood, so it was a big difference. those sort of things, bigger projects that fit within your plan and in the target area, we'll still look at. But we do the amenity stuff that goes into the park. We are going to have to prioritize what you want to see in that park, and then seek that part, that 50-50 funding with the county or other partners. And then community building and organizing. Community building and organizing is kind of what is all the other, I would call soft stuff, really important, but some strategies to help organize and keep your neighborhood kind of moving in a direction. So as we all know, just as much as we love infrastructure and parks and housing and stuff, physical stuff, it's the people that keep the neighborhoods moving along. So lastly, we have implementation, which I'll show you an example of what that looks like here in a second. Okay, I think some of you would be interested to see this, so we put it in there. This is how a target area is determined. We've done this with, I think we have 15 neighborhood plans since, I guess I started it back in 2000. I'm dating myself here. But we started this, we've advanced this a little bit more in that we now have a composite map that takes the first 5 maps on the left. We have code violations, owner-occupied homes, building conditions, infrastructure conditions, and crime. And we consolidate all those into a bigger map here on the far right, this purple map. And you begin to see some trends. The darker blocks are going to be the blocks that score basically the worst, and those we'll focus on those to see if there's if a series of those blocks would become your target area. Not always the worst blocks become your target area. You want them to become your target area. You want to have some. You want to be able to, like I said, turn an area around, and some areas are very far gone. Some are teetering on being too far gone, and we want to catch those. We want to arrest those right before they get to decline any further, and prop up those blocks with some investment and combine that with some private investment as well. So we identify, so that's kind of how the target areas are identified. We do that work. The planning staff will and this is what you'll see at the kickoff meeting. I believe we'll do those first 5 maps for sure. And I don't know if we do that 6th map or not at the kickoff meeting. Let me see where I go from here. Okay. Oh, so this turns into so this is Tennessee Town. This is our most recent adopted plan. It wasn't a huge neighborhood, so it looks like the target area makes up half of the neighborhood. But you can see the primary area up here. Again, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually that's a half. So a 5 block area. We also want to identify a secondary area. Secondary area? Wow. That is one that would be, and this is more on the housing side, where Sasha's group will go in and Corey will go in to identify people who want to take on housing grants and loans for their improvements, and we'll go there in the primary area first. And then if we don't get enough takers there, then we start to branch out, and that's why we have a secondary area as the next place to go to. All right, so in that target area, we have, and this is our implementation. So this is the implementation section. As you can see, it gets pretty detailed. There's identification of the projects on the left, the source of funding, which is going to be mostly going to be through SORT, or what we call our GO, general obligation bonds. And then we have the cost estimate. So we get down to an actual cost estimate, and we try to fit them under the 1.4, and I think we're seeking some more money as well on that. So we try to fit them under that budget. And like I said, then we get into other projects. We also want to identify other things that you want to do or other projects that we know about that will be coming forth. And they may not happen in that 1 to 3 year period, so we have a 3 to 5 year period to identify those as well. So that kind of makes up the bulk of what you will go through and what you will see as part of the neighborhood plan. In the end, we take that and we literally walk down, we send it down to Jason's department to, if utilities are involved, send it to utilities, and also, obviously, we hand off to Sasha and Corey for the housing piece as well. And they take it and they run with it. So it's just how important the planning process is. Can't speak enough about that, because if you do it right and you identify those things that you want to have happen, then we have folks here that can make that happen, and it will flow very, very seamlessly. So with that, are there any questions about the neighborhood planning oh no, we're not taking
Do
questions.
that at the end.
Forget that. Never mind. All right, we're moving on. All right. And Corey will be up next.
Oh, wait. Thank you. Okay, so the housing component consists of 3 neighborhood opportunities. We have the major rehab program, the rental rehab program, and then demolition is also an option. Demolition program is scattered all over the city. It's not just in the neighborhood, this neighborhood, so it can be used anywhere. Major rehabilitation is for homeowners. It provides interior and exterior repairs, so things like sewer line replacement, water lines, plumbing, roofs, siding, windows, just about anything that is in bad shape we can do with major rehab. It must meet the HUD-approved standard that we have. So if a home is needing $30,000 of repair, we can do it if it meets that HUD rehab standard. If it needs $40,000 to bring it up to that standard, we would not be able to assist that home. So the home has to be in some kind of a condition where it doesn't exceed $30,000. There is a mortgage that's put on the property, and I don't want you to get nervous about the word mortgage. It is a great deal because it is a deferred mortgage. It just sits on the property, no interest, no nothing until you sell, refinance, or trade the home. So it's just sitting on the property. And after 7 years, that mortgage is 50% forgiven. So if you borrow $30,000, after 7 years, your loan goes down to $15,000. For this program and the rental rehab program, you have to meet the area median income of 80%. So an example of that would be a family of 4 would be like $53,500. We can give you the other numbers if you need them. So that's the homeowner program. It's not moving. Oh, it just went all over. So go back to rental rehab. Got it? Thank you. Okay, so the rental rehab program is very similar to major rehab, except in rental rehab, we can only do the exterior and the HVAC. This is for landlords, so we don't give them the interior portion, just the exterior portion. So up to $15,000 for that. So these are things like windows, siding, those are our typical items, a roof maybe, and doors. Those are things that we can do with the exterior program. Again, it has to meet our rehab standards. So if we go in and the home is in too bad of shape and we can't bring it up to that standard, we would not be able to assist the property. The owner provides a 10% match. So if they end up borrowing $15,000, that's only $1,500 the owner would have to come up with. And again, we have a mortgage that's deferred with no interest, so it's the same type of requirements. After 7 years, 60% is forgiven. So essentially that landlord's getting his 10% back after the 7 years, because we give 60% on the forgiven part. Tenants must be, again, below 80%. So we are at 80% on both of these programs. There's an example of, yep. Demolition program is a little different, like I said. It is all over the city, so anyone can apply for that, not just the target areas. It is not income-based, so you don't have to be low income to do the voluntary demolition program. We clear the whole site, so all the structures and debris that's on the property would be cleared. We have to clear the whole site. Mortgage is placed on the property, and the payback is dependent on how you use the property. If you build another single-family home, you pay back less than if you just let the lot sit there empty. So that's the demolition program. And there's a good example of what demolition program can do. I'm sure that that really helped the neighborhood. And that's it.
Before we go on to LaToya's, can you talk a little bit about the partnership with Community Action and Habitat, and then a little bit about the opportunity that we had in Tennessee Town to partner with Cornerstone, Habitat, and Stormont Vale?
Sure. Okay, so we partner with Habitat and Community Action in the target areas. So basically, we have that max of $30,000, like I said, for major rehab. If we go in there and it's $36,000, which is over the limit that we can provide, and that $6,000 makes a big difference. We can partner with Community Action. Maybe they can come in and do some work before we go in there, and then our amount will be under that limit. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm probably not saying that very clear. But anyway, it's a partnership that we do. Habitat for Humanity also has a grant where they are painting exterior of homes. So people that don't want to participate in our program because of the mortgage, for example, they would have an option to apply through Habitat to get some painting, and that's for homeowners only. And that's a grant, so hopefully they'd still have it the next years. What else did you say?
So in Tennessee Town, we were really fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to partner with Habitat for Humanity, Cornerstone of Topeka, which is an affordable rental housing provider, a great landlord that we work with on a regular basis, and Stormont Vale. Stormont Vale owns some vacant property in the neighborhood, and we were able to get the groups together, and Stormont Vale agreed to donate their property to Cornerstone and Habitat. So part of what we'll be doing in Tennessee Town, which it does impact that $330,000 of housing rehab dollars. They had to give up some of that for residences and rental properties to help fund this project. But Cornerstone will be building some duplexes on the large lot that Stormont Vale will be donating, and we're going to participate in the cost of construction of one of those. And then Habitat will be building, they'll be getting 3 single-family lots. So I bring that up to you to tell you that we'd be looking for opportunities like that in your neighborhoods as well. If we can create some new construction activity like that through a partnership in your neighborhood, we'll be looking to do that. Okay, I'm doing slides.
Good morning. So I'm gonna first thank you all for coming out. I guess I get the microphone, I get to stand up. Before I start talking about the application process, though, there's a couple of things that I want to show you on the website that we're providing a little bit more information that hasn't been out there before. I sent some links out to you guys, but I just want to make sure that everybody's familiar with where to find the application online and where it provides a little bit more information about SORT. This presentation and the video of today will also be available on this page that I'm going to show you. So pull that up now.
Maybe. Oh, there she's got it.
So I already have it pulled up here, but I'm going to show you basically the steps that I went through to get there. So if you're on the city's website, which is www.topeka.org, you come to government, you go down to departments, and you'll notice that every department in the city is listed here, so you can visit their webpage if you want more information on that as well. But we're going to come down to neighborhood relations, and then from neighborhood relations, we'll come over here to community engagement, and I'm just going to come all the way down to neighborhood sort program. And then it takes you to our neighborhood sort program page, which currently has information on the workshops for today and Wednesday. The sort application, you can print out or fill out a paper application and then print it out and return it to our office, or you can also apply online. The website also gives some more information about what is sort, what are the stages, how you can apply, and gives a little bit more information about how to know if you qualify for the housing rehab assistance under the program. So that is there. And then one other thing that I want to show you all under departments. And then I'll go down to planning. And then I know they've changed some things around, so I may need Bill's help.
Plan. Are you looking at, oh, sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
So, sorry, I went to department programs, and then they have comprehensive planning, and then here they have neighborhood plans, so you can review more about their neighborhood plans. If your neighborhood has a current neighborhood plan, this is where your neighborhood plan can be found on the website. If your neighborhood does not have a neighborhood plan, this at least provides you with a general idea of what a neighborhood plan would look like in terms of when that planning process takes place. So, back. And Sasha.
Yes, ma'am. You'll tell me next slide.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, do that.
You bet, Mommy. Maybe. Yep, there you go.
Bring a chair over here. So I'm actually going to bring a chair over here. We're just going to go through basically the application process. So as we said, we went through the steps for the application process. But if you prefer, you can type in that whole website line there to get to the same sort application page. We're at the application workshops today. We will have some grant writing workshops that are not specific to SORT, but you can bring what you're working on for SORT or any other grant to our grant writing workshops that will take place in April. That'll be April 21st and 25th. Those workshops are not required, but we do recommend them. And then technical assistance for your SORT application. So this is if for some reason you're having, trouble with filling out the application online, maybe you don't have access to a computer, maybe you have questions about the application, whatever the case may be, I will be available for technical assistance from July 9th through the 19th. If you contact me, we can set up an appointment so that you can come in and we can, work on your application. Applications are due to the Department of Neighborhood Relations by August 3rd at 5:00 p.m. You don't have to wait until August 3rd. If you have your application ready, you can submit it at any time, but that is the deadline. And then As we've already mentioned before, the Citizens Advisory Council will select the target area NIA in September of 2018, and it will go to the City Council and the County Commissioners for approval.
Planning Commissioner.
Yes, Planning Commissioners, I'm sorry, for approval in October of 2018. So getting into basically the parts of the application, the first section of the application is neighborhood characteristics. Now this section of the application, as we were discussing it, we realized that before what we were doing was having the neighborhood come in, get this information from planning, and go put the information into their application. And we thought we could eliminate that step for the neighborhoods. Since the city already has that information, we will just add that information to the application once you submit it. And basically that includes if you have a neighborhood plan, how old the neighborhood plan is or when it was last updated, household census data such as the number of households in your neighborhood, the number of individuals in your neighborhood, and then your health map and block groups information that basically shows if your neighborhood is primarily intensive care, at risk, outpatient neighborhood, or if it is a healthy neighborhood. So for those of you that are new and may not be familiar with the City of Topeka neighborhood health map, this map was created by the Planning Department in 2014, and it is based on, I believe, the current census data and data that the Planning Department has gathered regarding, what's going on in these areas that comprises whether the neighborhood is healthy, meaning, maybe it doesn't have any of the blight or the issues that some neighborhoods have, all the way down to if it is an intensive care neighborhood that may have some more of the blight issues. So also includes your neighborhood improvement associations, and then kind of shows where those are. This map is also available on the Planning Department's website online or in our office.
LaToya, I just wanted to let everybody know we are updating that map, so it's within the next month or so we should have a 2017 health map, so we'll be using that to score in the fall.
Okay. The 17 map. 17 is what will be used for this application
We'll be using the
cycle.
2017.
Will that be updated, because that might make a difference in one neighborhood or another that will apply for this?
Sure, we should have something out to be able to present in April.
And we will provide that, so it won't necessarily come as a surprise. Once they get that map updated, we'll send that information out to all of you so you know where your neighborhood's falling. So the SORT application really starts for the neighborhood with impact and benefits. And the intent of this section is for you to provide information on what are your neighborhood's public, private improvement needs, what are some of the existing positive features that you'd like to see continue in your neighborhood, that you'd like to keep in your neighborhood, and then, what do you feel in your neighborhood are some possible limitations to being able to, really revitalize and turn your neighborhood around. So those are some things that we'd like to see in terms of when you're filling out this section, so that we can get a better understanding of, what is really going on in your neighborhood from your perspective and your point of view. The capacity and commitment section is basically the opportunity for you to provide us with information on your NIA history, the mission of your NIA, the vision that you have for your neighborhood, and then, do you have community support? Are there local businesses in your neighborhood that, support your neighborhood? Are there other neighborhood residents that, really want to see the SORT program come to your neighborhood? This is basically an opportunity for you to engage with your community stakeholders, and we'd like to see that involvement here in the application as well. And then any other neighborhood resources or partnerships. Maybe you're working with a local business in your neighborhood that has agreed to partner. I'm going to throw out maybe a park improvement as an example. Maybe they've agreed to sponsor a new sign in the park, or maybe they've agreed to sponsor some neighborhood banners or neighborhood archway or something like that in your neighborhood. You don't have to have those partnerships, but if you do have those partnerships, that is something that we would also like to see in the reflected in the application. So the next steps after today would be for you to establish your SORT application committee. Hopefully that doesn't just consist of yourself. We hope that you all have some support within your community to work on your application and to really start looking at what needs your community has. And then, as I mentioned before, the grant writing workshops are available April 21st and 25th. We really recommend that you attend, especially if you've never applied for a SORT application. This would be a great opportunity for you to come and get some help with that. Technical assistance, as I mentioned, July 9th through the 19th. You can contact me, that's by appointment. And then applications due August 3rd, Citizens Advisory Council selection September 2018, and then council approval in October of 2018. For your reference and information, who to contact with the Department of Neighborhood Relations, I am the Community Engagement Coordinator, so I would be your contact in terms of the application, and any questions that you might have regarding that. For the Planning Department, your neighborhood planner is Tim Esparza, and you can contact him if you have questions about, anything that might be, in your neighborhood plan, or anything that any information that the Planning Department might have about your neighborhood. And then your engineering contact would be the city engineer, Brian Faust, who would be able to maybe provide you any information if he is aware of any capital improvements or other projects that may already be planned in your area. So all of this information is also in your packet. But yes.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, you're okay. And so now we are ready for questions. And I'm going to bring the microphone over just so that everybody can hear.
Okay, I have two questions. Okay. I knew I forgot my first question already. Let me do the second question. When you go to the SORT projects, I notice a lot of times you want to have, you got your first, and then your secondary seems to always be close to the other one. In my neighborhood, can you, what I was asked for, if you do one clear on one end of your NIA, and can you do the secondary at the other end? Okay.
Yes, to answer your question, that you can. We've done that, like, I don't know if you saw the Oakland maps up there, that was a huge neighborhood. And we had one primary area down near Chase Middle School, we had another one up near Oakland Park, so it was definitely done.
Let me remember my other question, because if somebody else has a question in my head, it'll pop back in my head.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Okay. I have a few questions. Okay, so my first question would be, how does the CAC actually score
the applications?
So go ahead.
Oh, I know what the other question is.
Okay, good. We'll come back.
So I'm going to use Sasha's mic here. So there is actually a scoring form that our department develops for the CAC to use in their scoring process. It is based, subjectively on the questions. And so there's points tied to each question. As you saw, we were going through.
Here, I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah, if you can bring it up. Oh, you went. Okay.
Is that one?
Yes, it talks a little bit. So for each section, there are points tied to each section, and for each question, there's a range of points that you can earn. Basically, if you meet the requirements of that question, you'll earn a certain number of points. If you maybe partially meet the requirements of that question, you earn another subset of points. And if you don't meet the requirements of that question, then you don't earn points for that. So basically, to explain that process, there's a specific scoring sheet that they'll have to go through, and the questions will either have to meet, partially meet, or if they don't meet, then you don't get any points for that.
Do we have access to see what the scores are? And what you're
On the
looking
score
for?
sheet?
Like, yeah, so like, let's say if it's, has something to do with the healthiness of the community.
Talking to the microphone so the video.
So if we have, so will we be able to know what you're scoring? So if, like, for example, if it's what healthiness range, I guess, we're in the community, and you get 3 for being at risk, let's say,
Yes.
will we know that as application filler outers?
Yes,
Applicants?
as applicants, yes. We will also provide that information as well to the applicants on what you'll be scored on.
Before we turn it into you, before the final?
I can.
Application?
It's not, but I can put it out there.
Okay.
Make it
Yeah,
available.
I can make it
Okay.
available.
The other question that I had is for Bill. You're saying for scoring it's 3 to 5 blocks. You score the 3 to 5 blocks on what needs to be done or what should be done in your planning, you were saying? So before the applicant fills out for the SORT grant, is there a way that we can talk to someone to find out if you could help us maybe with the idea of what 3 to 4 blocks need?
You don't have to identify that. We'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
So you, sorry, I'm going to use this. So you don't have to have already identified what those blocks would be in your application. That'll be part of that whole planning year after your application is selected. So basically, your application is going to be based on your understanding of the needs for your community, the vision that you would like to see, and you know, as I talked about, hopefully you'll have an application committee where, you know, it'll be a group of you discussing, you know, here are what the needs of the community, you know, here's just kind of an overview of what we would like to see, and then when you get into the planning year, they'll start discussing a little bit more about, you know, here are some areas that you really may want to consider for, you know, for some of those improvements.
Okay. And then I have a question for Corey. Sorry, I wrote down a bunch
No,
of
you're
questions.
good. You're good. You gotta use this though, so the video picks it up.
Okay, so Corey, I have a question about the housing, and you were talking about the people have to be under 80% to qualify. Do the people living in those homes have to have their names on the deed? So example would be, what if a mom left a house to a kid, and the kid, which is now an adult and has a family living there, never really changed the name over, it's in his mom's name or her mom's name, can they still qualify, or do they have to get that over into their name before they could qualify?
They would have to get it in their name to
Okay.
qualify for a homeowner rehab.
Okay. And then, does the taxes go up on that house after this is all done?
That's a good question. It's possible, but I doubt it will because of the area. Like my home, I put tons of money into my home. It's never taking it up any. If I sell it, I'm not making any money on any of my improvements because of the neighborhood around me. So it might bring it up just a little bit, but I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Okay, and then on the demolition, do you have to be under 80% or something if you're wanting to
No, you
qualify
don't.
for that?
You don't.
And that has to be a homeowner, whoever owns that property has to put in that grant?
Yes, has to put in the application.
Okay. What if somebody wants to help the homeowner and they put in the application, they just have to sign off on the application?
That'd be fine if you have the homeowner's permission to submit the application. We're going to essentially have the homeowner sign all the documents, so as
Right.
long as they're agreeable, we,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And then you were talking about, what's that, sorry. Oh, I wanted to ask how often you actually update the health maps. How often do those get updated?
Every 3 years.
Okay.
So it's just timing. This is nice. This is happening this year.
Anything else? Okay. All right, I see one hand here. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, we'll come back to Peggy and then,
Anyway, mine's a quick question, because I'm stuck in the old ways, because I've been doing this for 15 years. So I take it, now we're only picking one person for sort, and we're doing this annually? Is that how it works now?
Yes, ma'am. So rather than 2 neighborhoods every other year, we'll select 1 neighborhood every year. So the net result is the same.
Right.
We're just changing the timing of the process so that we can, as Jason explained, so we can sync it up with the capital improvement plan and hopefully get bigger projects at the same time that we're doing your sort.
The same amount of money that we did every other year will be coming in annually now?
Yes.
Well,
So,
I mean, let me add this. This is a good thing because, 2 get it and it's every other year. This way, this gives them more incentive. I got a chance next year or whatever they get done down. They don't have to wait to 2 years and then they get burned out the heck with it. So I think it's a good deal.
I'm glad you're pleased. I think that, along with having a year for the planning process or much longer time for Bill's group to work with the neighborhood will be a benefit. It's going to be a good change.
I know some of the old people won't say something, but it sounds good to me.
It's the young people.
Some of us are stuck in our old ways.
My question is, what do you mean in the health so far as too far gone in a target area?
Good question. Let me think. There's this, I don't want to call it any particular neighborhoods, but there was a neighborhood that we worked on with them, and it was a big neighborhood. Part of their area, several streets were clearly identified as having more negative conditions than the other streets next to it. And so the decision was, there was a strong few blocks, a so-so set of few blocks, and then blocks that had gone down fairly much. So the strategy is, do you try and make the investments in those, let's just say those so blocks, where you actually could then leverage homeowner investment, and before you can save it before it starts to go down any further. If you put your money and you target your investments in the blocks that had gone down too far, the question is, will anybody follow that investment with their own investment? Meaning, the problems are so, it's not just a few houses that need help. It's like the entire block needs help. And that's a big lift to make and turn around with the amount of money that we have. So we don't have all the money in the world. Believe it sounds like a lot, it's not. So we try and be very strategic with that, but we have found that you can turn around the block if it hasn't already gone too far gone. Where the house, let's say there's just blocks that have, every other lot is a vacant lot, every other house is just, in dilapidated condition, with very low home ownership, with a lot of crime. That sounds like the block you want to target sometimes. If it's small enough, we can, but if it's a big area, then it's just like throwing a pebble into the lake. It's not going to have the same effect. So that's something we look at. Every neighborhood's going to be different, and not all of them have that situation. Some do. So we just, that's kind of what we will work out with the committee when we work with the neighborhood, is where do you think the best return on the investments will be? Yeah.
So does that neighborhood continue to go down because does the neighborhood continue to go downward because we're just kind of turning a blind eye to it?
Can I say something real quick about that?
Sure.
Update to the Tennessee.
Peggy, I think that, let's take the streets that Bill was talking about. If you choose an area with 3 streets that are completely destroyed and need to be completely rebuilt, the sort money, that $1.4 million, and Jason can talk to you about the cost to completely rebuild a street, but it's much more than $1.4 million. So the appropriate tool to fix that is his street improvement plan, and he's got a street plan now with ratings and a schedule of when things are going to be fixed. That's where those streets need to go to be repaired, so that your neighborhood can focus this 1.4 on 3 blocks that we could actually resurface the streets, and you'd see a significant improvement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So no, we don't want to ignore those blocks, but sort may not be the right tool to fix those blocks. Sorry,
yes,
Bill.
thanks, Sasha. I mean, yeah, we're talking about the sort investment, the 1.4, the 300,000 of housing.
Yeah.
That's not the end game. That's not all we have. And so we looked at and showed you some neighborhood-wide projects that we'd like to do with other pots of money through the years. And so we will not turn. No, it's just a different strategy, a different tool to use, and sort may not be the right tool for that blocks.
On your rehabilitation programs, to close the loop, we start part of the process, partner with you at our NIA meetings, handing out the brochures, and getting that info but the applications aren't done through the NIA, but they're in the NIA. So how do we close the loop for knowing which people got them and what level of satisfaction do they have in the NIA, so we know our level of efficacy to your program?
Sure. So housing rehabilitation in particular, we're very careful about disclosing the specific address, because we don't ever want to be in a position where we're identifying folks as low income. So that's a challenge for us, because many neighborhoods want to know exactly what houses were improved, but we want to protect the privacy of the folks that we're working with. So we won't give you the addresses. But back to your question about the application process, you're right. We have a meeting that we host in partnership with your NIA and a stakeholders meeting. But what we have started to do, because we were seeing not as many applications as we wanted. One of the things that we've started to do differently is knock and talks in the neighborhood, where we'll get a group of our staff. We're hopeful that the NIA will come out with us, because what we know is that if I show up with my shirt with the city logo on it, sometimes folks are less likely to open the door unless you're with me, because they know you. They don't know me.
Yeah, and I understand all that. I'm more interested in stats, QA, QC. What percent did we have? Did we have 4 applicants, 5% of our community? You know, we don't really care
Okay.
about the addresses, except when they get a hold of us to complain, and we tell them, well, it wasn't installed right, something happened. Now they come to us and we go, we're not a part of that process. So who do
Sure.
they go see?
They need to come back to us if they
But
have.
as NIA, we're not included, so who do we tell them? How do we might tell them to go see our city council rep. You know, there's.
They always have the ability to talk to the city
But you
council.
understand why our interest is. That's just one example. We don't really care about identifying low income and embarrassing either. But they're including us in the process because we are at the beginning, but we're not closing the loop in many different ways.
Our preference would be that you have them come talk to Corey and her staff about complaints that they may have about the actual installation, because Corey's crew is the one that actually works with the contractors and inspects the projects to ensure that they meet the standard that HUD has approved. So, and to clarify, Corey's crew is not going to walk away from a project if the installation of siding, as an example, hasn't been done correctly to meet that standard, because HUD holds us accountable for the use of those funds if they're not properly
So
used.
somebody comes and does this on their own, or they have to get a hold of you?
Well, if they're complaining, they would need to get a hold of us so we would
They get a
know.
hold of me, but I don't know who to get a hold of. I'm more concerned.
Well, I will
about
give
the
you my,
process.
I will give you my card and you can just share my name.
NIA, though, shouldn't, it's kind of like people who do code compliance. Shouldn't we always be completing the circle? They shouldn't have to take a complaint. Shouldn't somebody be back-checking the contractor's work?
We do.
We do.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
we don't really need to do anything. You should be
Yeah,
getting.
and they have a year warranty. The contractors have a year warranty with the.
On what's specific. But
Absolutely,
I just want to
yes,
highlight
yeah.
your attention.
I think we have a full circle here. I don't think that there's a problem
Okay,
at all.
It doesn't from our
Talk a little
perspective.
bit about what really happens on a rehab project.
Yeah, so we bid the project out. Once we get the specifications of what we're going to do, we bid that project out, and we pick the lowest and best bid from a list of the contractors that we have vetted in our office. So we've looked them over. They have insurance. They have everything that they're required to have. So that contractor gets selected. They do the work. We have an inspector going out periodically to take pictures, to look at what's been done, and then we do a final inspection, which the homeowner or the landlord, the homeowner or the landlord is present and signs off that the work is complete and to their satisfaction. And then, after that, there's a year warranty that goes with the job, so they can go back to the contractor, or myself, and I could go to the contractor. Yeah, okay, yep.
You got all your answers that you needed? Because here's, the reason why I'm saying this is because I've gone through this before. I have people call me all the time, and I always refer them to Corey because I can't answer any of their questions, because I can only get them to ask them to fill out applications and get them that far. But when it comes into, after they've filled out an application, anything after that's not my responsibility, really. It is Corey's responsibility, because I can't do anything for them, because it's something my NIA can't do. So anybody that ever calls me that always has a problem or wants answers with that, I immediately give them Corey's number, and I never hear back from the people. They get very satisfied. And I've never had a problem, so I'm hoping nobody else will.
We'll talk to you after, though, and find out what's going on, because we definitely don't want people feeling like they haven't gotten good service.
Okay, we have a question here with Deb, and then I think we can take maybe a couple more questions.
I have a couple of questions. I wanted to clarify, an NIA can apply every year for the SWOT grant now?
So you can, with the caveat that if you get selected for a SORT program, you can't apply again until your program is complete. So Teresa's here because her program, the last she was one of the last before these two newest neighborhoods. Now she can apply again because her programs are done.
Okay, I see, all right. And then the second question I had is about the HUD rehabilitation standards. What are they? How do I find out what they are?
It's a little packet, and it just has all the information of the different mechanical systems, all the different areas that we need to look at to make sure that the home is up to a compliant level. So I can send you that if you want to get with me after the meeting. I can send you a copy.
And do you have to have that before the house is selected, or is that something that's looked at after the house is selected?
We go in, when we do the initial inspection of the home, we look at to what we can fix. We try to fix all the items that are going to complete that standard. And so that's what we're doing there.
Any other questions?
Peggy's got one.
Just agree with what Sasha said to her question with an NIA can apply for a sort every year, conditions.
So
What was your answer?
So if you don't, you could continue to apply every single year if your neighborhood wasn't selected. But once you get selected as a sort neighborhood and you're working with planning or the public works group or our housing, you can't apply again until your sort is complete. And then you can come back in that next application cycle and apply again.
Gotcha.
Yes,
3
ma'am.
years.
So, my last question would be, are there any other grants or anything that we can do as a community to, or partnerships that we can gain or work on to help you guys with the infrastructure, or let's say, whatever we need to do, like painting or... So let's say, for example, I work with Stormontville, and I get Stormontville because they're in my NIA. Stormontville is willing to donate so many hours of volunteer help to paint a house, or
That'd be amazing.
to...
Put that in your application.
Okay.
That'd be amazing. I think you bring up a good point. I think one of the things that has kind of been missing in the past from SORT is more involvement from those other players in the neighborhoods, the businesses, the nonprofits, just those other, not just the residents. So that's kind of been a missing thing that we should all be focusing on.
So when I'm talking about infrastructure, so if we could work with, like if we have a construction company that is in our neighborhood and they're willing to donate gravel on alleyways, like I'll do 3 alleyways and give you the gravel for those. I mean, is that something that can be done?
But not my lane, Jason.
So, I mean, I think there's opportunities to partner. I mean, just on that specific example, we just have to figure it out if there was a way to partner. Because a lot of times with the SORT programs, we are, the design work we do, we contract out. And so, you know, if there's a way that we put it in the bid that we've donated, I don't know, 10 tons of gravel for alleys, so the contractor doesn't need to bid that, then, yeah, I mean, maybe there's a way to figure it out. We're open to figuring out those partnerships. I'm not aware of specific grants, though, for like infrastructure. They kind of focus at that level. I mean, we've brought some things in, like working with planning, the transportation alternatives grants to kind of help implement some of our bike lane facilities. Maybe one day in the future, there's more of the alternative energy grants for street lighting technology, those types of things. I mean, we're talking with Westar and some other partners about how we can just better use the technology that's out there, and just say we're open. And if you have those ideas, maybe that's, like Sasha said, put them in the application as a way for us to kind of review that and see what we can do.
I know when you were talking about like energy saving, it's kind of what I was thinking of. Like a lot of times you can get, maybe there's a grant out there to get the solar lights placed instead of using the regular lights, so it'd be energy efficient. I didn't know if there was some kind of grant for just the lighting if you are trying to be energy efficient?
I don't know, well, that'd be a good question for Westar, but I think to Jason's point, most of those infrastructure type grants, the cities are the applicants, so you wouldn't be able to apply typically.
Okay.
But if you want to be creative and talk to folks and say, hey, do you want to donate some gravel? Or another issue that we know is a big deal for public safety is house numbers. A lot of houses don't have house numbers on them, so if you want to get a sponsor to buy the numbers, that would be an area where you guys could definitely get that partnership and get that connection, include it in your application, and that'd be super.
So
We
if-
fully support that.
So one thing that like we're trying to do in Historical Old Town is we're working on getting lights for everybody's porches. So that's kind of like we're going to go and see if they have numbers on their houses and put numbers, and then we're going to provide them a porch light if they need a porch light, so that we can get all the lights on in the block. Or
And those are initiatives that you can put in your application
Okay.
that just exemplify to the city how committed you are to that revitalization of your area.
Okay.
I think it's important that you tell us that you're doing that.
I believe that the lumber stores like Home Depot and such, we have received light bulbs in the past, several light bulbs from Home Depot through a grant. So I think you could apply as a neighborhood organization through the grant process, but it sounds like a good project. They would look at it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, we want to thank you all for coming out today. Please help yourself to some snacks over there. We have coffee. I think it's still hot. Some orange juice and, some fruit and different things. So please help yourself.
Thanks, guys. Good questions.
Nothing for me. Yeah, Home Depot.
Most of those big places
All of the lumber stores.
have